So I have been living in the US for 6 months now, and boy, do I have a lot to say. Just before we get started though, I would like to provide some context on my situation. So I'm an international student from the UK attending a private academic institution in the South. So I'm very well aware that my experiences might be tainted by the situation I find myself to be in. However, I have tried to be as objective as possible to give you the best video on American culture shocks. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a call. Oh. Okay, wait. Hi? Mm-hmm. As someone who has lived in multiple European countries throughout my life, I have definitely noticed that Europeans see work and life as two distinct things, whereas in the US, the line is very much blurred and you don't know where work ends and life starts. And I feel like this is because ultimately the history of the country comes from a place of liberty and capitalism, and what has naturally happened is you have this insane economic growth, but capitalism has ingrained itself into the psyche of people. And in some ways, this is incredible. This is why so many people go to the US, because here you can really make money and you can have so many opportunities presented to you. It's an energetic environment, it's exciting. But if you want to also be reflective and have time for yourself, it's going to be hard to balance those two.
Am I supposed to give you my thoughts of American people?
Yes.
Something I've noticed during my life is the massive cultural divide between, especially at Duke where it's really prevalent, is the divide between like higher class people and middle and lower class. There's just such a big cultural divide between them, I think. And it's in the way that it can almost be harder to just, of course, get along with people because you have less in common because you don't have those super large experiences.
My overall understanding of Americans so far is that they're super friendly, super open, but it kind of lends itself to a shallowness in terms of when you actually try to form deep connections, it takes a really long time because people are more fake and people are more reserved.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I don't really know where that comes from. And I had some friends from Germany, and they were saying, yeah, if you just have an evening with the people that they were around in Germany, you'll just learn so much about them, when in the US, it's almost taboo to be so open with someone when you're just getting dinner with them for the first time. And that's something I feel sad. I'm not sure exactly where it stems from. I guess at some point it's kind of taught that openness is weakness here, essentially. I think if you're not friendly on the surface, then you're viewed as really negatively.
Yes.
It's almost
it's you have to be nice.
Yeah, it's almost
like a given
presupposition. You have to be nice to someone's face.
I was gonna go into that nice little sidewalk to see if that would be a nice place to film, and then I remembered that guns exist in this country and trespassing could get me killed. I remember when I first had an arts class here and we had to provide feedback to people in the class on their work, and we weren't allowed to say anything negative, and if we did say something negative, then we always had to follow it up with a positive. And I found that so interesting because I feel like people here try to not say anything polarizing. You always try and make other people feel comfortable, and although I agree with the idea of trying to, create a safe, comfortable environment, I don't always think that you should try and make other people feel comfortable, because discomfort can lead to great discussions and great progress, and in some way I feel like people being afraid to voice their actual opinions is stagnating progress, which goes against the whole ideal of what America seems to stand for. And also because the country is relatively new, there's less of a culture that's ingrained into society. So in Europe, I feel like there's such a push to engage in the arts. People go to the theater, they go to concerts, it's just all around you all the time. And maybe it is where I'm at in the US right now, but I feel like the culture mainly revolves around sport. The ideal weekend is going to a sports game, and although that's great, I feel that there is a difference to the way that the arts speak to your soul versus the way that sports speaks to your soul. And I do think that lends itself to a different emotional depth that therefore defines the way that culture is represented, but then also the way that people just interact with the world and see the world.
I think there's a very interesting thing about America being the land of the free. And it's important to talk about this idea of freedom, because when there's so much freedom, there's a lot of this and that. So what happens is you have so many opportunities, but it's very bureaucratic. You can do absolutely anything if you have money. You see what I mean? There's an illusion of freedom, which is great for morale, but not great in practicality, because so many people believe they can have so much more than they actually will, which is how I think this country runs.